You can be anything you want to be. Never in a million years would I have thought I would have been a CFO. I'm very honored to be here, but I also want to make sure everybody knows that you don't have to have everything all figured out and you don't have to follow what path someone thinks you should be on. Be on the path you want to be.
Hey, it's Nikki, Llewellyn Gregory, and you're on Gut Plus Science. You're in for a fast-paced, storytelling, action item-rich leadership growth experience. I hope you make this podcast a habit. I consider it a leadership mentoring tool. Learning together makes us better together, and that is how we change the world around us. Let's get to it. Hey, it's Nikki, and welcome back to Gut Plus Science. Today's guest is a shining example of what it means to be a leader that steps outside the box and advocates for the employee experience at the highest level. Jennifer Knotts is with me today. She is the CFO of a leading interior design firm for commercial businesses. Her path to this role wasn't the traditional one. With 2 degrees in completely different fields, Jennifer forged her own way into finance and leadership, proving that careers don't have to follow a linear path to be fulfilling. Oh, I love that. So inspiring. She's passionate about listening to employees, creating an inclusive culture, and ensuring that feedback isn't just collected, it's acted upon. Jennifer will share with us how her company turns employee insights into real change, why thinking out of the box is a must for leadership, and the story behind their love jar. It's a unique practice that fosters gratitude and connection in their workplace. So, Jennifer's call to action for us is really around advocating for the employee. And we're going to break that down with her today. Jennifer, welcome. In our prep conversation, you quickly started to talk about the concept of thinking outside the box as a leader. Tell us why this is so important as a foundational effort to be a leader that thinks outside the box.
Well, thank you, Nikki, for having me on first. I'm very excited. I started thinking outside the box a long time ago with my son, who is now 21. He was born with special needs. And so each time I tried to teach him something, he taught me that's not how we're going to do it. So we're going to learn outside the box. He's now no longer special needs. He's a thriving 21-year-old. But because of that, I have learned to take that through every position I've ever been in a company. And right now we're in a very unique dynamic where you have an older generation, a middle generation, and a younger generation. And so each one of them thinks completely different. And so I just make sure that I try to look at it from a different point of view, how someone else might feel, how someone else might think, and just being very careful in choosing and how I want to speak to someone or what I want to have our team be. And so we think outside the box.
I love the story of why that is so important to you, your life journey and the what your son taught you through the experience of parenting. So powerful. I'm curious how when you're leading others in your organization or peers that you network with and you're challenging them to think outside the box, I'm just curious like how do you help them build a muscle for that?
It takes time. The first time you may do it with a newer employee having a sit down meeting, and I like to ask a lot of questions. I like to understand the process. I like to understand how everything kind of works. So I came from a utility in my previous job or industry, and I'm now in an interior design company, which is completely two different things. And so tried to sit in every staff meeting, every rep meeting, everything I could to get up to speed on what my team does. And with that, I ask a lot of questions. So we actually just had a meeting before this meeting with an employee, and she's now getting used to the questions I'm asking her, like thinking first, wait, what response should I have when Jennifer's asking me these questions? Or what responses should I have? Or what questions should I ask when I'm out in the field? And so that has been a really good tool, I think, for anyone. We haven't had any turnover in over a year. We really think thoughtfully about that and how we want to help our employees grow. And so I'm trying to think of one way that a person wondered why she was in the meeting and why her superior was not. And I said, well, did you ask the question of why they were not invited to the meeting? And she said, no. And I said, you do have the right to always ask a question when you're being put into something. I said, you have that right. And then the other employee said, well, I don't know why I wasn't in it either. I said, well, did you do a follow up? Did you ask why you were not included in that meeting? And she said, "No, I didn't think to do that." I said, "You also have that right. You're working on a project with another design firm and you're working together. You always have the right to ask questions. The worst someone's going to tell you is no, or it's not your business. Like it's not something that you should be involved in. But what's the worst they're really going to say to you?" So is I always just look at it as there's no harm in asking questions.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Such good encouragement there. I know that we've talked about your organization and just the unique culture that you have, very intentionally designed. I've talked with other leaders at your company, and you just said, like, we've had no turnover in the past year. So, bravo. That's a standout. I know that you shared that one of the things you're most proud of is we listen to feedback. And I wanted you to talk more about what that looks like in your organization done well.
So when I first started with IDEO, it was in June of 2022. And by December of 2022, we qualified for putting in survey for the best places to work. And we had never had enough employees to be a part of that, or maybe they didn't want to be a part of it in the past. I'm not 100% sure, but just that we are now, like we wanted to start this. So all of the employees, there were 17 at the time. All of us, except for one, took the survey and we actually won best places to work for a small company. And then we decided, I'll skip ahead a little bit and then jump backwards, is that we did it again for a second year. And then we also became best places to work for 2 years in a row. But I'm going to go back just a little bit to 2023. We were in the middle of a transition. Two of the owners were buying the company. They had both been interns for their entire careers here at IDO, and they've worked their way up to leadership. Lee and Amanda are just fantastic leaders. And they're also willing to give their team that kind of think outside the box or give them a little bit of leeway so they can grow in their careers or in their paths. And I just love that. But as we were going through the middle of this transition, we hadn't addressed the feedback, and it was fantastic feedback to go through. So I started going through it, and then they also went through it. And as we were noticing, there were several questions that we just wanted to make sure that we were addressing. There were some things that you can fix, there's some things that you cannot fix, but it needs to be explained why you can't fix that. And then there was some things where we maybe need to educate just a little bit. So after Amanda and Lee bought the company on October 31st, 2023, Amanda and Lee also allowed me to, because HR is a big passion of mine. I just really love it. I love getting to know people. I love advocating for employees. I believe that HR shouldn't be a scary word, that it shouldn't be, oh, I'm either getting fired or hired. I think it should be, how can we help grow our team? How we can help them be successful? Then that's going to make the company successful. So we did this survey and I said, it was 5 questions. And I said, I want you to be brutally honest because this one's not going to be anonymous. Like you are going to have to make sure you're putting your name on this because this is how we're going to really address this. So we took part of one survey, part of another survey, and really listened. That included pay raises in 2024. That included promotions and growth. We redid our whole strategic planning. We got hit really hard with IT. So we made sure everyone had a laptop, everyone had a design license so that as we're growing the company, we're not sharing computers or doing anything like that. We had a couple in there that people didn't think that we were diverse because we're almost an all fully woman owned company. So we have one that was born and is from Chile, and she lives here in the United States. And then we had one that has parents of Syrian descent, but she was born in Turkey and lived in California before coming out here. And we now have a male that works with us who is a minority. So we try very hard to do that. But the two women that we had probably didn't look diverse because they probably look a lot like what a lot of the women in our company do, which is white. But knowing their culture, knowing their history, and talking with them, they have different holidays than what we do. They have different things that they eat. So we try very hard to make sure we're including them, but also we listened to not only some not knowing that we're diverse and letting them know who is diverse in our group, but also just kind of going over the history and their culture and understanding that. And we were able to implement this past January 2 floating holidays. Those are days that you can use whenever you want to use them. They don't have to actually be on a holiday, but if you have something that's in your culture and you want a day off, you don't have to use a vacation or PTO day for that. On top of that, we have 2 part-time employees. Well, we now have 3 that just started last week. They wouldn't get any PTO time. And so now they get these 2 floating holidays. They get this 16 hours, and one has been here for almost 20 years, and she said, "I have never had anything like that. Thank you so much." And so it's just those little things that go a long way just to really giving that back to your employees, and we just really love them for that.
Wow. Well, if we look at, employee feedback, let's say through kind of this survey model where we're asking questions to then hone in and go deeper on things that really matter. I think so many times these questions are asked and the feedback's collected, and then the majority of our employees are like, whatever happened with that? Like, what are we doing? And
Yes.
so this, modeling the way of being very communicative throughout the process and not only taking maybe the quantitative data, let's say that it was quantitative and more questions, and then to be able to boil it down and say, okay, we're going to go more in depth here on the things that really matter. And this is where we want this open ended in-depth feedback from everybody to help us solve these things. Like we want your voice, like so powerful, so powerful. And then the great example of like we aren't diverse and how that led to now this extra perk of, working in your company that people really cherish. It's a really, really cool story. And I think you've shared already some examples of building an inclusive culture, but I think you've got more there that you wanted to be able to share today.
Yes, we do have a very inclusive, we try to think outside the box again. I love that word. I probably will use it a lot, but we created what we called a social club. And that is just letting that younger generation come out, have ideas, something that they might not always get to have an idea on. And so they get to help with any engagement activities that we want to have. We have our marketing and office manager running that. I wanted to see how she does as she grows in her role, and this was just a really great way to see that, but it also gives the employees that knowing that we really do value their feedback. We also had a couple other things that we were implementing. One being the office was not done. We're an interior design company. And when I started, they were working on an office refresh. We haven't finished that yet, or we hadn't at the time. And so in 2024, I tasked one of our newer employees. She had been here, she left, and then she came back. She loved us so much, apparently, liked the culture. I wanted to see what she could do. So I worked with her closely, and I'm not a design person, so I valued her feedback on what she was picking out. But we finished the living room, we finished the moss growing wall in the front as entryway as you enter in. And she pulled in some of those other designers that she gave them the opportunity to give feedback. And it was really nice to watch her grow in that position, that role, and getting to have ownership of it. So now on social media, she posted that. We've posted that. But everybody that comes in gets to see it. And the first thing that we do is we say, here's the reps and all of their furniture or their flooring or the flowers or the moss wall. This is everybody that we used. Not just that, but it's also we get to say, "This is Samantha," and she was the one that got to finish that. And so that's a really cool thing to be able to involve your employees. And so those are just a couple of the ways that we've tried to keep them all inclusive. We value their feedback. We go around the room on a once a week meeting, and we let them kind of say, "Hey, what's my stress level? What's my work level?" And then we all kind of listen on that.
I love that. I know that there's something you told me about before we get to the love jar because I wanted to tease that out because I loved it so much when we talked about it. We'll get there. It's like a 5 or higher rating scale check-in. Something about the taking action on employee needs or something around capacity. Help me fill in the blanks. I just remember it was unique.
So that is one thing the previous owner has started. She started this company 33 years ago this month in her basement and has grown this company. And it's a fantastic company. And Lee and Amanda are taking it in so many great directions. But what I loved about this is every Thursday we have what we call a collaboration meeting, and we get to sit around the room and everyone goes around and kind of gives their stress level. It used to be a 1 through a 10. We've kind of changed it up. We're letting another leader kind of take ownership of the meeting. And so she's using it more in memes or movie quotes and different things, which I'm loving as well, because you get those like 5 different faces of a different character in a movie. And where is your level of stress for the week? So it used to be a 1 through 10. And if you ever got past a 5, immediately the first thing in the room was, how can I help you? How can I step in? How can I take something off your plate? We value work life balance. We don't want our employees working in the evening or the weekends if they can help it. And sometimes, with a client need, it might not be avoidable. But for the most part, we want them going home in the evenings. We want them being relaxed. We want them enjoying their lives, and enjoying their families, especially if they have young ones. They're only young once. I remember those days. I have a 23 and 21-year-old. So I understand all about that. But loving when someone will say, I'm at a 5, I can't take on more work, or I'm on fire. And watching an employee, whether it be a supervisor, if it's one of our design level ones, everyone jumping in, how can I help you? How can I take something off your plate? And it's just a really powerful message to know that our team is just so supportive of one another. And I've never worked in a company ever that has been like that.
Wow. The two things that shine when I talk to you is one, the care at the core of all of this, and the pride that you have for the place that you work and the people you work with. It's like that is not the norm. You see these statistics all the time about people who like dread Mondays and whatever. And you're just like this shining example of like, you can just tell like care is at the core and just the pride that you have for being part of and just watching other people flourish. So it's awesome. I love it. I feel the energy through the episode.
You can ask my husband. I actually get up every morning, and I would have the opportunity if I wanted to work from home occasionally, but I don't want to. I actually love coming into the office every day, even if I know it might be a stressful day or something. I have never once said, "Oh my goodness, I don't want to go to work." I love coming to this office.
Oh, that's so fantastic. I just have to throw out something I'm really passionate to challenge people on is like if you're listening to this episode right now and you feel very opposite of that, work on that. Advocate for yourself to find that cuz just like Jennifer was sharing about the precious time we have with kids as they're growing up, we only get so many precious, years of our lives to work and to put our strengths in the right place. So please keep seeking for that. So inspiring. But I now want to go to this love jar. Where did this come from? And tell us how it works.
So I'm not 100% sure where it came from, but I think it probably started with Amanda and Lee. Just kind of putting a note into a jar of someone that did an exceptional job, or someone that just went out of their way to help you, or just something that you noticed someone was going through, or something they set up, and you put this note in. And it can be, like I said, from the level 1 all the way up to executive level, someone could put a note in. And then when we go around and we're doing these numbers, or we're doing what is your stress level, and some may say I'm rocking and rolling, or some may say I'm on fire. At that point, we will read out the note to the person that it's addressed to in front of all of the stuff so they could hear what love jar moment you got. So it could say, "Hey, thank you for coming on and doing a lab move with me. I really appreciate it. I know your schedule's busy, but it really made my day and it helped my stress to have you there." Or it could just be, "Thank you for taking something to my house for me. You didn't have to do that. You drove out of your way, but I really appreciate it." I mean, it can be as big and as small as you want it to be, but the look on someone's face when they get one of those notes. And I know I kind of have my screen blurred out, but I have a lot of my notes taped up on the back of my board. So every day when I come in, I can see those notes of how I impacted someone or someone impacted me. That means a lot. If you were to walk around our office, you would see everyone has their notes all posted up. Those notes mean a lot.
Well, it goes with this episode that I was just working on called Tapping into Someone's Meaning Meter. Right? Like, and that being something that adds to, like, you just watch, like, the meaningfulness or whatever in your work going up, but it sounds like right there, that's an example. These notes do that, right? You've made it a regular practice, a ritual. It's become a cultural norm.
Yes, it
Well,
really has. And we share a lot on social media as well. And when we do, everyone's like, your office seems like it's so much fun. And I don't think you could have that without having a team like ours that truly enjoy being around each other and truly enjoy spending time with each other. So, and I was telling my niece, I had her at our house the other day, and I told her she's 16. I said, don't let anybody pigeonhole you into you either have to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a nurse, or, an accountant, something like that, an engineer. I said, you can be anything you want to be. I said, never in a million years would I have thought I would have been a CFO. And I absolutely love it. But I also get to do business development and HR and operations. And I work with a team that lets me do that. And I'm very honored to be here. But I also want to make sure everybody knows that you don't have to have everything all figured out and you don't have to follow what path someone thinks you should be on. Be on the path you want to be.
well, that's a mic drop right there. I love that so much, and just goes with the theme of out of the box, right? Like, it's not in this place, this rigid box, in these lines, and there's so many possibilities. And as a leader, going back to really what you're here to encourage us about today is advocate for the employee and challenge, press the boundaries to find the things that really drive that meaning and help them be their best self and just love the work, love coming to work. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think we're going to head over to our lightning round so that we can learn just a little bit more about you. I know at least one of the questions I have leads right into this out of the box thing that I'm so excited to talk about. But we're going to start with what we always start with, your favorite book of all time or a favorite recent read. What book would you like to share?
So, my favorite author of all time is James Rollins. He used to be a veterinarian, still is, but he writes these really captivating books. They are a little bit of history, a little bit of religion, a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of action, but the same characters. And they start out in the past, and then in a couple chapters, they jump to the present about saving the world. And my first book I read was Map of Bones. Absolutely loved it, and because of it, I went back and started reading all of the series of all the books, and I like to not think about always what's going on in the world. I mean, I do think about those every day, but there are moments I just wanna get outside and use my imagination, and so what I do is I read those books, and it takes me to different places, and I absolutely love it.
Oh, love that. I think in today's world more than ever, you gotta have those things that take you away,
Yes,
give you a break
absolutely.
and just, enjoy. Speaking of, you have a hobby, for cooking that I have learned, and it's an outside the box way. I know it's a no recipes. Tell us more about your no recipe cooking, why you enjoy it so much, but also the limitation in one area of cooking that you're like, "I don't do that kind because you gotta follow a recipe." Tell us more.
So I do. I love cooking. I always loved to cook, but I really got into it about 5 years ago when my husband had a health scare. And I had to really look at all the ingredients of something of what goes into something for him. And so I got really good at just creating new combinations, and I love cooking, and so I do a little bit of throw this in or throw that in. And then I always get asked, do you have a recipe? Can you give me a recipe? And I have to really pause and think. I'm like, did I put that in there? I'm not sure if I put that ingredient in there. And it's really hard for me to do a recipe on that, which is brings me to the I am not a great baker. I am not that person you ever want to bake anything because you have to follow a recipe. And I am awful at following a recipe. I like to do my own thing and just kind of think outside that box. I'm like, ooh, that might be a good thing in there. That might be a good thing. And I will never, ever, ever forget that my youngest son, I made chocolate chip cookies one day. And they, of course, they spread. I didn't follow the rule, the recipe. And he came in the house, sends me a picture, and he asked me why there was cat vomit on the counter.
Oh
And
my
I'm
God.
like, those are chocolate chip cookies, but thank you for that. And I was like, okay, I'm not your baker. I'm just not going to be your baking person. So
Oh, I love it. Have you ever heard the quote, how you do anything is how you do everything?
I have not, but I'm probably going to put that up on my message board because I love that.
I love it. That's great. Okay, I love bucket list items. I heard that you checked something off your bucket list semi recently in Montana, something that I personally want to do. But I guess to others around you, they'd be like, wait, you're cool with that? You want to do that? Tell us more about that.
So I am not a very outdoorsy person. If hiking was in the forecast, that would not be me at all. I'm just not that person. I like to be by the pool. I love anything with water, but I'm just not an outdoors person. And when we went to Montana last year, that's where my husband's from in Missoula, Montana. And we decided to do some outward activities and different things. I said, it's on my bucket list. I would love to go whitewater rafting. And he looked at me like I'd grown 2 heads, and he was like, "You wanna go whitewater rafting?" And I go, "I really do. I've always wanted to do this." And it wasn't quite their summer weather yet, so it was warm enough to be out without a jacket on, but not warm enough to get in the water. And so we had to put on these thermal water suits. And my husband and my son put on their jackets, so they got long sleeves on with their water jackets. I'm sitting at the front of the boat with no sleeves on, just just our suits that we were in and the water suit. And we were out there for 4 hours and I kept getting splashed in the face and everything. And my husband's like, "Aren't you freezing? Like, I would think that you're cold right now." I go, "I think I'm running on so much adrenaline right now that I don't think that that's possible. I am not cold at all." But it was the best experience. If you've never done it, I highly recommend it. And I definitely wanna go back and do it again.
Oh my gosh. Yes, you're inspiring me. It's been on my list of things to try for a while. There's a place I think in West Virginia that someone recommended that they'd been to. So I'll figure out where that's going to be for me. Do you have a next spot that you're wanting to go to for your next whitewater rafting experience?
Well, when we went close to Asheville near Blowing Rock, North Carolina, we thought about doing it. The weather just was bad that year, so we couldn't do it. I would love to go up there, so they're a little bit higher up than where we were in Missoula, but it would be a lot of fun.
Oh, so cool. Well, we'll swap stories when I get mine checked off the list there.
I would love that.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today. And I'd love to make sure that if people want to follow up with you to learn more about the love jar or, the way that you all are running these collaboration meetings, the social club, all these great things, how can they connect with you?
Send me an email at Jennifer at IDOincorporated.com. So it's all one word, IDO Incorporated. Or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just make sure you put in a message, "Hey, this is how I heard about you," at Jennifer Knotts, Knotts, on LinkedIn.
Jennifer Knotts, thank you so much for joining me on Gut Plus Science today. I love that we started with this call to action that you have a heart for and help us all advance. Advocate for the employee. And you so beautifully shared your stories and examples of how you are doing this and have done this in your role as a leader and now as the CFO of a leading interior design firm that is growing and recognized as a people first company. So thank you so much for sharing. And here's my truth you can act on from the episode. Number one, block time as a leader to think outside the box and make that a habit. Create space in your calendar for creativity. Number two, model the way of thinking outside the box and help others that you lead build a muscle for innovation and creative thinking, sharing with them how you're doing this and inspiring them to block time to do that for themselves. Building a culture of innovation and thinking outside the box is so powerful. I'm going to tie in one of the fun facts we learned about Jennifer. She's like, I don't ever use a recipe. It's like, how do you apply that to the work that you're doing? And sometimes looking at how do we do this differently and then making that more and more of a habit. Love that so much. I also love your reminder that culture and building engagement, it really takes time because it is a deep dive with team members and a highly relational effort. Then you shared the quantitative and qualitative feedback that you all do at IDO to help people really share their ideas and get their feedback on certain things because you've created new programs or changed offerings inside the company from the feedback that you get. And both the quantitative and qualitative feedback on a regular cadence is so important. And then finally, you brought up the power of gratitude, and I am a daily practicer of gratitude. It is part of my morning routine and all throughout my day. And I just know it transforms everything. And I love that you shared a practice of consistent gratitude as a leader. It just fills our cups, right? So thank you so much. And Jennifer, we look forward to sharing your knowledge with our community more in the future. We'll see you next time, guys. We just left the world a little bit better. Now, go do something with it.